Welcome to the Blackrock Foundary guide for the normal and heroic difficulties of the Gruul encounter. For this kill, we used 3 tanks, 5 healers, and 17 DPS, although this configuration isn't necessary, and other setups may work just as well. I'd recommend at least 2 tanks, and a healing ratio of about 4 to 1, so 1 healer for every 4 non-healers in your raid. Jumping right into it, Inferno Slice is up first. So this is going to be the main tank ability you're going to have to manage throughout this fight. So Inferno Slice has a couple of parts to it. First, it's going to hit your tank for a huge amount of physical damage and leave him with a debuff that increases his damage taken from Inferno Slice, but only the physical part. Next, he's going to do a huge frontal cone attack of magic damage, which is part of the Inferno Slice, but the damage from this cone is split amongst everyone hit by the cone. And everyone that is hit by the cone is also going to be left with a debuff that is going to be ticking for damage over time. Now, because of the duration of the debuffs associated with this, you're going to need to swap at 2 stacks, though if you can swap at 3 stacks, if you can tank the damage, it'll make it easier to handle another mechanic called Overwhelming Blows. Now, Overwhelming Blows is an added portion to Gruul's auto attacks, so whenever he auto attacks your tank, he's also going to be doing some extra physical damage, and this physical damage is going to hit anyone within 10 yards of the tank. And it's also going to leave the tank and anyone within those 10 yards with a debuff called Overwhelming Blows, which increases their damage taken by Overwhelming Blows by 10%, and this also stacks. Now, the Overwhelming Blows debuff lasts for 1 minute, which means that you have to swap at 3 stacks of Inferno Slice in order to drop your stacks of Overwhelming Blows. Alright, now that the tank abilities are out of the way, we'll talk about the abilities the rest of the raid will have to deal with. First up is Cave In, and this is just simply an AoE circle on the ground with rocks falling in it, so just don't stand in that, because nobody wants to get hit in the head with a rock. Next we have Overhead Smash, and just like Cave In, this is going to be a void zone on the ground, and you just want to not stand in it. He'll occasionally cast this, and it's going to be a line void zone coming out from the boss, and then towards the wall. And he's either going to cast it on one of your 2 groups, or possibly your tank, so it should be pretty easy to dodge, because you'll know exactly where it's going to go. Just sidestep to the left or the right. Now, when Gruul enters a destructive rampage, the only thing he does is cast Overhead Smash, so just keep dodging the Overhead Smashes and don't get hit by any of them. Now, the last ranged ability you'll have to manage is Petrifying Slam, and this is the only real difficult one that you'll need to worry about. The way this works is Gruul's going to knock up some random players in your raid, and is also going to give them a debuff. Now, this debuff is going to stack up 1 stack every second, and when it reaches 5 stacks, it's going to turn that player to stone. And each stack is going to be slowing the player by 20%, and that's going to stack. So once they get to 5 stacks, they will be stone, and while they're getting to 5 stacks, they're going to be moving slower and slower. So when they get knocked up, they're going to get the debuff at 1 stack, and they're going to need to use any movement displacing or movement increasing effects to get away from the group, whatever their clump of players are. They need to get at least 8 yards away from their clump of players, and they need to make sure that they're not near the tanks or the other clump of players. The reason for this is Shatter. When they're petrified, a few seconds afterwards they'll get shattered out of the petrify, and this will cause them to do a bunch of damage to anyone within 8 yards of them, so they need to make sure they're away from anybody else, essentially. Alright, for positioning on this boss, you're going to want to split up your DPS and healers into 2 even groups, and you'll have these on either side of the boss. Now for tanking, there's 2 different ways to do this. The way we did it is we had 1 tank in between the groups tanking the boss, and then we had another tank with one of the groups. This way, the 1 tank in between the groups took all of the damage, essentially. He was tanking the boss, getting all the overwhelming blows, and then when the boss casted his Inferno Strike, the other tank that's with the group would taunt, so the Inferno Slice hit that group. Then once the Inferno Slice went out, the tank in the middle would taunt back. Now, the opposite way to do this is to have both your tanks in front of the boss, but spread out so that they don't get hit by the overwhelming blows from the other tank. And then when the Inferno Slice goes out, whichever tank is tanking the Inferno Slice would turn the boss into whichever group is going to take it. So to take down Gruul, it's really all about managing the Inferno Slice stacks properly. The way we do this is we have our 1 tank in the middle, and our 1 tank in one of the groups. We'll say the blue group. And the first 3 Inferno Slices that go out are going to be taunted into the blue group, so that they're going to get 3 debuffs, and the tank is going to have 3 Inferno Slice debuffs. Once the third one goes out, the tank that was tanking the Inferno Slices is going to move in between the two groups, and he's going to start tanking the boss full time. Whereas the tank that was doing it previously is going to move into the opposite group, we'll say the red group. And then that group is going to take the next 3 Inferno Slices. And within that time frame, the overwhelming debuff will have dropped off of that tank, and the tank that is tanking Gruul currently will have lost his Inferno Slice debuffs. And then you're just going to repeat that process back and forth until the boss dies. The only thing the range really has to worry about for this fight is the cave-ins and the overhead smash. Just dodge those AoE zones. And then the petrifying slam, which is very easy to deal with. Essentially, you only have to get away from your group 8 yards, which is really, really easy to do. Just take a few steps to the left or the right and you're out of the group. And the damage itself isn't that bad, so if a few people are hit by your shatter, it shouldn't even matter at all. And if the stacks do become a problem, either the Overwhelming Blow stacks or the Inferno Slice stacks, make sure you're doing the Inferno Slice stacks correctly, even if you have to sacrifice the Overwhelming Blow stacks. So, the Overwhelming Blows is pretty useless. It doesn't do that much damage to the tanks, and it can be healed through pretty easily. So, don't worry about messing that up if you need to make sure the Inferno Slices are going out to the right groups. And if you get all that down, this boss should die pretty quickly for you. Thank you for watching my normal and heroic Gruul guide. If you like what you saw, make sure you subscribe so you can get the rest of my Blackrock Foundry guides and whatever other random videos I put out. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments section below, and I'll respond as fast as I can. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.